Hello viewers, I am sure all of you go to movies and after coming out of the movie hall, I am sure you discuss about the movie. You discuss the cast, you discuss the locales, you discuss the song and dance sequences, the camera work, and most importantly, I am quite sure you discuss the story. Because every film, every movie tells us a story, and movies have been telling us stories for more than 100 years, wonderful stories. So, if a movie can tell a story, that means cinema has a language, because you need a language to tell a story, to tell. Now, these are the thoughts that had come to the mind of Christian Metz, who was a film theorist living in France. And Metz applied the principles of linguistics to cinema to explore to what extent cinema can be compared with a language. So now let us first examine language as a sign system. Sign system, another word of sign system is semiotics. So every sign has two parts, a signifier and a signified. Now, signifier is a sound image, means it can be a sound, it can be an image, or it can be a mixture of sound and image. And signified is the concept or the idea. So, a signifier can be a word, it can be a photograph, it can be a caricature, cartoon or anything, and that signifier always signifies either a person or an object or even an abstract idea, an institution or whatever. So, as you can see that this chair is the signified and the photograph of the chair which is there on the wall is the signifier. In the spoken language, the word dog, dog, is the signifier, and the idea of the dog that comes to your mind, that is the signified. Now, there are three types of signifiers: icon, index, and symbol. Icon is something that bears a resemblance to the signified. So, it can be a painting, it can be a caricature, it can be a photograph. That's an icon. Index is something that has that is the proof of existence of the signified. Say for example, fingerprints. I touch this and I leave my fingerprints on this. Okay, so that means I had been here, I had touched this. Okay, or say maybe a cigarette butt, smoke coming out of the cigarette butt. It's there, you can see it in an ashtray. That means you know that somebody had just been here. So those are the signs of somebody's presence, or smoke coming out of a chimney. That means somebody is living in this house. So those are called index, proof of existence. And symbols are abstract figures, or you can call it figures. Say for example, logos, okay, company logos, those are symbols. Similarly, in spoken language, all the words are symbols because they are arbitrary. They don't have any resemblance or any association with the ideas they convey, except for these onomatopoeic words. Onomatopoeic words means like, say, the car whisked past, or the dog is growling. Okay, so that means the word itself has some kind of a resemblance with the sound that it is suggesting. So those onomatopoeic words are few and far between. Otherwise, by and large, all the words that you find in any language are rather abstract, and so those are all symbols. So every language has a large number of words which are there in the dictionary or in the lexicon. So the words are chosen and they are strung together in a sentence following a certain grammar, and then each sentence makes meaning. So that's how you communicate with the help of a language. And the person who listens to the sentence, he decodes it in his mind, he makes sense, and then he chooses his own words and structures a sentence, and he replies. So that way there is a two-way communication. Now, when a sentence makes sense, when we say that a sentence makes meaning, there are two kinds of meaning that a sentence can make. Okay, a sentence or any statement. One is denotation. Denotation means the literal meaning, the obvious meaning, okay, and it is in the realm of existence. There is no confusion about what the sentence means. That is denotation. And connotation is the suggested meaning, it's the implied meaning. Okay, you can also say it's a figurative meaning, and that is in the realm of myth. Different people will get different connotative meanings of the same sentence, but the same denotative meaning of the sentence. Alright, so meaning always there is a connotative aspect to it and there is a denotative aspect to it. Now, among the connotative aspects of meaning of a sentence in spoken language, you can have a simile, a metaphor, a pun, euphemism, synecdoche, metonymy. So these are all connotative aspects of a language, and I think you know what these are. Simile and metaphor are comparing one object with another object, like she looks as red as a rose, so that's a simile. Okay, and you can say, and if you say my feelings, my passion is red rose, like that, so then it's a metaphor. All right, so like that. And if you say no man is an island, or my love is a red rose, as I said, so these are metaphors which are often used. Metonymy symbolizes something by association. For example, as you see here, Charlie Chaplin's stick and hat, you immediately know that it's Charlie Chaplin. Similarly, Gandhiji's spectacles, or Sherlock Holmes' hat and pipe. Okay, so these are metonymies, where meaning is made through association. Synecdoche is a type of metonymy which is part representing the whole. Like when you say crown, that means you are meaning the king or the monarch. When you say keel, you mean that it's the ship, because there can't be just the keel. If the keel is there, then the entire ship has to be there. So part representing the whole is synecdoche. So that way, and pun is of course something all of you know. So these are the various kinds of connotations. Now connotations can be of two types, syntagmatic and paradigmatic. Now paradigmatic, we say that paradigmatic connotations work along the vertical axis. That means that out of the various options given in the dictionary, you choose one particular word. Okay, say for example, you can say that the children are being naughty, or you can say the children are being restless, okay, or you can say the children are being destructive. Now, all the words mean more or less the same, but there are shades of, the shades of meaning are different. So, naturally, that meaning of the sentence will be different if you use the word naughty or destructive or restless. All right. So, out of all the adjectives available in the dictionary, you are choosing one particular adjective, and that is altering the meaning of the sentence. So, that is a paradigmatic connotation. Syntagmatic connotation, on the other hand, is the meaning that comes out in the context of the sentence. That means in the context of how it is used in relation to the other words. Say for example, if I say the water table has really gone down, okay, or if I say please learn your arithmetic tables before the exam, or the wooden table is lying on the wooden floor. So in all the three sentences, I am using the word table, but the meaning of table is different, and that difference in meaning is coming out in the context in which we are using the word. So that connotation is called syntagmatic connotation, which works along the horizontal axis. All right, so you can have a syntagmatic connotation and you can have a paradigmatic connotation. So all this holds good for verbal language like English, Hindi, German, whatever. But when we come to the language of cinema, or when we try to say that cinema is a language, Metz came up with a stumbling block, because in cinema you do not have alphabets, you do not have individual words. The smallest unit of cinema is the shot you can identify while you are watching a movie. Now you may say that a shot consists of a number of frames, but the point is when a movie is running, you cannot identify a separate frame, but you can identify a separate shot. You know when a shot changes. Now a shot is much more complex than a word. A shot is like a complete statement. So supposing I take the shot of this pen stand lying on the table, then it says that the pen stand is lying on the table. It's making a statement. So a shot is like one full sentence. It's in a way complete in itself. All right, and that happens to be the smallest unit in the language of cinema. The shots are put together to create meaning. So that is where language of cinema differs drastically from a verbal language. Now, at the same time, a shot is an icon as well as it is an index. Why it is an index? Because it is the proof of existence. Because this pen stand is there on the table, I have been able to take this shot. But at the same time, the shot of this pen stand on the table is very similar to the real situation of this pen stand lying on the table. So therefore, it bears great resemblance to the idea or the object that it is signifying. Therefore, it is also an icon. So a shot is, at the same time, it is an index as well as an icon. Now, the thing is that just as I said that in any spoken language there is always a dictionary of words, limited words, it may be 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, whatever, but limited words. In cinema, is there a dictionary of shots? And the answer is no. Every shot is different from every other shot. There may be a slight variation in the light condition, slight variation in the image size or camera angle, or there may be a slight movement. So every shot is different from every other shot. No two shots are alike. And every filmmaker, howsoever novice, howsoever clumsy may the filmmaker be, but he is creating his own language. When he is taking a shot, when he is taking a number of shots, he is creating his own language and he is adding to the lexicon of cinema. That's the beauty of cinema, that every filmmaker is a creator. And that's what takes cinema to the realm of art, not merely a spoken language, but it goes in the realm of art. Now, in what other way is the language of cinema different from verbal language? With a verbal language, you have two-way communication. You ask a question, you get an answer. You make a comment, you get a reply, like that. But in cinema, you cannot have a two-way communication. Cinema is a medium of expression. So there is a creator, the filmmaker who makes the film, and there is a large number of audience who watch the film and who make meaning out of the film. Okay, so it is a one-way communication. So that's how it is in a drastic way different from spoken language. Also, when you are taking a shot, it is assertive and in the present tense. That means, supposing the pen stand is not there on the table. Now, using a shot, you cannot make a statement that the pen stand is not there on the table. Only when the pen stand is there on the table, you can take the shot, and the shot will be like a statement that the pen stand is there on the table. Okay, so negativity, it's not easy to convey negativity, absence in a movie. Similarly, if you have to convey the past, what has happened before, then you have to go to flashback, and the audience should know that, okay, now we are going back to the past. So you have to use various kinds of cinematic devices to convey that, okay, now we are going to the past. All right. So therefore, cinema always speaks in the present tense and always speaks in the assertive. So these are the stumbling blocks that Metz faced when he tried to prove that cinema is a language. But at the same time, because it tells story, it has to have language-like qualities. All right. So what are the things that are there in cinema which are similar to language? And those are the ideas of code, the idea of a message, a system, a text, structure, and paradigm. So these are the linguistic elements that apply very well to cinema. And also the connotative elements of metaphor, metonymy, synecdoche, visual puns, these also apply to cinema. All right. So there are definitely certain very strong linguistic elements that you can apply to cinema, but it's not a well-developed language system like Bengali or Hindi or English, like that. So you can say that cinema is a proto-language. Okay. So that's the term you can use for cinema, a proto-language. Now we come to the codes, the cinematic codes. Now what are codes? So signification is the process by which messages are conveyed to a spectator using a code in a text. So every meaning possible in film is mediated by a code which enables us to make sense of it. So a code is a logical relationship which allows a message to be understood. The filmmaker uses codes to make his material speak to the spectator. Now what are the various codes in cinema? One can identify three broad categories of code. One is artistically borrowed code. So the meaning that comes out through the composition, through the lighting, through the colors used, through the color scheme, all those are artistically borrowed codes. For example, you see these famous paintings. You see this is Night Watch by Rembrandt, and to my right here, this is Potato Eaters by Van Gogh. Cinematographers have actually studied these paintings to learn about lighting. You know, how to light up a character, how to light up a set, how to create drama through lighting, how to highlight a certain object through lighting. These are all learned from the paintings by the cinematographers. So these are all artistically borrowed codes. Foregrounding, composition, who are the main characters? The ones that are there in the foreground, the ones on which light is falling, they are the main characters. So all these things are learned from paintings. So therefore, these codes are all artistically borrowed codes. All right. Now, cinema being one of the youngest medium of expression, it has borrowed not only from painting but from all the other earlier existing art forms. Say, for example, theatre. So this is a shot of Laurence Olivier in the play Hamlet. So earlier, in the very early days of cinema, there used to be performance. You know, the films were basically filmed, recorded performances. Though the camera didn't move this way, that way, somebody or a group of people performed in front of the camera, that got recorded. All right, and those were called photo plays. And then, of course, the language of cinema matured, but this performance aspect remained integral to cinema. So without a performance, you know, without any human being expressing, gesticulating, okay, from his body language or from his verbal language, without that, it's difficult, it's not impossible, but it's difficult to imagine any movie without any performance at all, any performance in it. All right. So therefore, performance is an artistically borrowed code borrowed from theatre. What else has cinema borrowed from theatre? That entire concept of mise-en-scene. You know, what to put in the scene, what will be the props, how to position the props. So that's the mise-en-scene, setting up a stage, that is, okay. So that entire idea has come from theatre. And also telling a story in 3 acts, acts 1, 2 and 3, that also has come from theatre. All right, so cinema has been quite heavily dependent on theatre. Similarly, cinema has been dependent on literature also, because both tell stories. You can tell stories through novels, you can tell stories through movies. So naturally, many of the literary codes have also seeped into cinema, and musical codes too. Cinema and music both flow in time, so both go hand in hand very well. So they know the tempo, the flow, these things about in a movie, those are all artistically borrowed code from music. And Satyajit Ray had said that Western people are better filmmakers by and large because Western music is more structured. You know, you have a first movement, second movement, third movement, like that. And those who have grown up in that sort of a milieu, for them, automatically those movements or that kind of structure has automatically come into their films. And their films are also structured in many ways like music, which is absent in Indian music. Indian music is not structured that way. So that's why the earlier Indian films also, you will see that kind of a rigid structuring is absent from the earlier Indian films. So these are some of the artistically borrowed codes. Now, what are culturally derived codes? Culturally derived codes are, say, for example, a woman in white, meaning that she's a widow, a woman in black, meaning that she's in mourning. That's in the Western context, all right? Somebody with a sindoor or with a wedding ring means the person is married. Or from the costumes, you can make out, okay, this person is a doctor or this person is a laborer. So those are culturally derived codes. From a house, you can make out, okay, this is an elite house. This house belongs to a very elite person or a middle class person. So those are culturally derived codes. A lot of meaning is made through these culturally derived codes. All right. And now we come to the codes that are unique to cinema. Now, what are the uniquely cinematic codes? The most important uniquely cinematic code is the code of juxtaposition. The meaning that comes out by putting 2 shots together. As the Russians had shown in Kuleshov experiment, that 1 + 1 is always greater than 2. The meaning that emerges from the juxtaposition is something that is not present in the individual shots. But when the shots are put together, a new meaning emerges. So that is purely cinematic. Okay, but that's not the only cinematic code. The codes like focus shift or even camera movements, these things are also uniquely cinematic codes. Or viewing an incident from multiple perspectives, immediately cutting from one perspective to another, one point of view to another. These can happen only in cinema, so these are also uniquely cinematic codes. And when you are watching a movie, all these codes are very tightly interwoven to make meaning. You really have to sit and watch a movie very carefully to separate the codes and understand how each code is working. Okay, they are all interwoven in a very nice way in order to give a rich meaning and a rich texture to a film. Now, what is a filmic text? When you are analyzing a filmic text, the smallest filmic text is a sequence, because a sequence is like a chapter in a book. It has a complete existence. So you can analyze a sequence, or you can analyze an entire film, or you can even analyze a body of films, say all the westerns or all the musicals, all the films that belong to a particular genre. That also together you can do an analysis, that how these codes make meaning in a particular genre. Okay, so that is a filmic text. And now we shall apply all these laws of semiotics that we learn, that cinema as a science system, to a particular sequence which I am sure all of you have seen, and that is the last sequence of the film Mary Kom.
मेरी समझ में नहीं आ रहा कि मैरी का ध्यान कहाँ है, उनका स्टांस, उनका गार्ड कहाँ है.
So here we see this particular action of the boxing scene is constantly cutting between the hospital scene where the baby is there and the doctors are trying to cure the baby, the hospital scene. Then various people in Manipur are watching this boxing bout. Her guru is watching on television, sitting in his home in Manipur. In the saloon, in the hair cutting saloon, some people are watching. The scene is constantly intercutting from the boxing arena at the Olympics to these various levels. Then of course the expressions of Mary, when the camera takes her close up, her expressions, that is theatrical. The lighting that you see in the boxing arena, that is of course imbibed from painting. The cheering that the crowd does, that is also imbibed from theatre. So all these things are there. And then this uniquely cinematic code, apart from this parallel cut, comes when competitor gives a punch to Mary, she is thrown up in the air, and in extreme slow motion, Mary falls down. And in this extreme slow motion as Mary is falling down, we are also intercutting between the crowd and between the people in Manipur watching the saga and so on and so forth. And then she falls to the ground with a thud, and then from slow motion it comes to the real motion, the normal motion. Now cinema has this unique ability to play with time. The time is a plastic entity in the hands of cinema. So cinema can stretch time, cinema can compress time, cinema can make time go back and forth and like that. So here this extreme slow motion is actually stretching a small moment in real time and dramatizing it. Okay, so that is uniquely cinematic. This slow motion and stretching of the time through slow motion is uniquely cinematic. Now what happens after Mary falls on the ground with a thud? The camera is close on her. Her adversary says that go home mama, and she spits out blood, okay? And then it cuts from Mary's closed eyes to the closed eyes of the baby at the operation theatre in the hospital. And there is a strange kind of feeling that is stirred in the minds of the audience because of this juxtaposition. All right, and then Mary's eyeballs start moving, we can see, and we then again cut to the baby. Baby also opens her eyes, and then Mary gets up and gives her, comes back into the game and starts punching her adversary. So like that. So that is how so many quotes are operational in this particular sequence to make it a rousing sequence, to churn up the emotions of the audience and to take it to a point of climax. So that was an discussion. So you can take any sequence of any movie and you can apply the principles of semiotics and you can do your own analysis.